Hello and welcome to the Select Board meeting for December 2nd, 2020. Welcome. We are just out of executive session and now jumping into general session. Thank you to WACA-TV for putting us out via the TV as well as via live stream on Facebook. We are all still attending via Zoom with the governor's orders allowing us to do that. We are going to start with citizens participation. I would ask that you raise your hand if you'd like to talk to us today during citizens participation. Ideally using the raise your hand in the Zoom app, but if not, if you can just raise your hand and we will look that way. So I'm seeing Deb G with her hand raised. So Deb G, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and talk, please.
Hi, thank you. Hi, this is Deborah Griffin. And I just wanted to thank you all for efforts against the Eversource pipeline, I think that's still on the agenda. And also, I don't know if it's on the agenda, but as a member of the Affordable Housing Trust, if you have a discussion about possibly going from 5 voting members to 7, because there is interest of 3 people, then I do support that.
Okay, Deborah, that was not put on this agenda. I don't know how we missed that, but it has not been put on this one, but we will put it on a future agenda and let you know. And I know Joe has mentioned it to us as well. If we could, if you could let us know, and I believe you might have sent something that you're looking to add some associate members. So like I said, we'll put that on our next agenda and invite you back as well as those who are interested in being appointed.
Yeah, and specifically, I think that people have an interest in being full voting members, and an associate member might just be non-voting. So I am asking on the path that we all voting members.
All voting. Okay, great.
Thank you. And thank you all for your efforts and your generosity to volunteer for the town.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Deb. Okay. I'm seeing Chuck and Lynn Litz with their hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, we were just wondering if I saw Eversources on the agenda later, whether it would be possible for citizens to ask questions at that time related to what is presented.
Michael, I don't know that the update is such that there are going to be questions or answers available to questions. Michael?
It's going to be rather minimal for now.
Okay.
Well, it might be, I don't know, it just might be good to discuss what's happened so far and kind of review where we're at. I mean, I would think that would be helpful for people. I had some.
Right. I think we can discuss, and I would say that if, as select board members, there are questions, and then we can see from there whether or not we need to open it up to the public.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll play it by ear.
Can I make a recommendation though that we consider moving that up in the agenda? It's at the very bottom of the agenda currently, and if it's a relatively short update, we could probably do it prior to the consent agenda. Just a suggestion.
Sure, because it's at the end of the town manager report. Yep, we can do that. If everyone's in agreement, we can move that to just after the consent agenda.
I'm good with that.
Brandy, you good?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Catherine Jerzyk, you have your hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. And
hi, Catherine Jerzyk, 11 Rodman Road. I just wanted to ask, I sent an email a few days ago to the select board, but I figured this was a quicker way because everybody's busy. How can I get a copy of the agreement on the Hall House? I found out, sort of in the paper, and it was really exciting and interesting, but I could not follow like the real details of that. So I'd like to know, like, for example, it talked about 600,000, but are we splitting that with the developer? Are we getting any? So where could I get that?
Michael?
So Kate, are you talking about the agreement between FSU and the town?
Well, if Cesario's article was at all correct, and sometimes people don't, it talked about a developer doing something with the property, implying working with town, but I'm guessing purchasing, but I don't know. So that the agreement that Cesario is referring to, I guess.
Cesario was specifically referring to the agreement between FSU and the town. And that's actually related to what's going to be on the town meeting warrant next week, which essentially swaps parcel lines between the town and Framingham State, and then also removes easement that FSU currently has on this property to access the barn. And then there would be a purchase and sale agreement subsequent to that with Paul Gustafson for the transfer of the property.
Okay, so that whole, I mean, that then there isn't any document yet. And then when that's signed, I guess we can see the purchase and sale.
Absolutely, and the agreement with FSU too.
Cool. That's going to be posted on the website, or should I put in another request?
We can send it to you.
We can remember that you've asked, Kate, and then make sure you gets sent out to you.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Kathy Rooney, you have your hand raised, and then I'll come to you, Mark, but we're going to Kathy first.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I have a comment about the Eversource pipeline, because we're gas customers right now for like one appliance in our house, and they are actively trying to sell to people to drum up business so they can turn around and say, oh, we have increased demand in Ashland for gas services. And I just feel like that's yet another underhanded thing that they're doing, and I don't appreciate it. I forwarded the information to the Eversource pipeline people today, but I can also forward it to the select board if you would like to see the mailer that we got.
Oh, sure. I'd be interested.
Yeah, anything like that would be great.
Okay, so that's
you can send it to town hall, and then we'll all get a chance to see it, Kathy.
Yeah, I know. I'll go on the website and find the address.
101 Main Street.
Do you think you could scan and just email it? Because
that's what I'm planning on doing. Is
oh, okay, that'd be great. Yeah.
Oh,
then
okay.
It's easier to distribute.
Great. Okay. Anything else, Kathy?
Nope, not right now. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Mark Sony.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Mark Sony, 49 Hawthorne Road, Ashland, Mass. 01721. Loving and living the life in this town. And to start off with the citizens participation, yes, the Eversource people is doing everything that they can to persuade, even if it's like a con job with what their mailing is that Kathy Rooney said and everybody else is talking about, understanding that they're trying to drum out business is to say that, oh, we're looking out for the customers, but they're not. They're looking out for their own pockets and to get that pipeline through the town without much of a punishment. That's one thing. Another thing is I said at the Board of Health meeting last night, and to the town manager, Michael Herbert, and through the chairman, that is, and Jen Ball was on the health board last night. I would like to openly and publicly thank the Meals on Wheels that sends out little meals to the seniors, because my dad's on that list now, and that has helped economically, and that everything that comes to the house for about 2 or 3 days a week, and my dad is appreciating it. I'm now his personal waiter to give to him. And
Isn't
yeah,
that what sons are for, Mark?
that's what dads tell them they are for. But when you go up and come up and be the other side and see the other side of what's happening and live in the other side, you appreciate it a lot more because people are out there helping. But it's coming to the door, and the people that are volunteering, the drivers that bring up to the door, are so friendly and outgoing that it shows that Ashland does have a heart. So through Eversource, which they don't have a heart for anything except for themselves, to the Meals on Wheels, which they do, which gets out to the citizens as good, great things to do. The holidays are coming up, and I know I saw Ed Berman's name up there. He might bring up Corbin, and understanding that we're going through everything else on that side, but overall, this town is having a four corners circus going on within themselves, and to the town manager's select board and all that involved, it's good to have everybody there to hear, to be together and understanding. And Michael Herbert, yes, Eversource. Well, we talked about the right-of-way permits and all that stuff. They're now trying to get around, and I understand. Just shake the head, yes or no. There's still a court action going on, right?
You know what, Mike? Mark, we're going to do an update on Eversource a little bit later, and we actually have a hearing that we have to start now.
Okay. Okay.
So thank you for your input, and
I thank you, and thank the town and everything else, and Michael Herbert, thank you for being patient and knowing that a person like me is still patient with a person like you. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. We have to end citizens participation now. We're going to jump into our fiscal year 21 property tax classification hearing. Legal notice, Town of Ashland, Board of Selectmen, in accordance with the requirements of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56, the Select Board will hold a public hearing on fiscal 2021 property tax classifications on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 6:10 p.m. at Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the percentages of the fiscal year 2021 tax levy to be borne by each class of taxable real and personal property. Meeting information will be posted on the agenda, which can be found on the town website, www.ashlandmass.com. Persons wishing to be heard on this matter are invited to attend the public hearing by logging into the Zoom meeting. Interested parties who are unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments to the Select Board's office, Town Hall 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass, or by emailing Susan Roby at sroby@ashlandmass.com. I would like to welcome Rich Ball, our assessor. He's going to take us through some of this, but I believe, Michael, are you going to start or is Rich going to start?
No, I'm going to let, I'll turn it over to Rich shortly. I just want to explain to the board and everybody watching that this year it's going to be a little bit different than previous years. Typically, we have the tax classification hearing after a special town meeting that's usually held in November. Mm-hmm. This time we're opening it up before special town meeting that's going to be held next week. So we'll technically have to keep this open until after town meeting before the board can close it.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know from a procedural standpoint. Rich, it's all yours.
Yeah,
no, I
much
saw,
better.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
How's everybody doing?
Hi,
Good,
Rich.
thanks.
Good. Here we are once again for my presentation. I just want to reiterate what Michael had just said, that the past few years that we've been able to open and close the classification hearing all in one night. This year, it's a little bit different. You know, if we go back a few years, this is what we did for a couple of years anyway. We will open it tonight and probably most likely close it out next week at probably the next select board meeting, maybe. I'm not sure about that, but So for the purpose of tonight, since we've opened up the classification hearing, I'm just going to present to you whether the town of Ashland should stay with the single rate or look at or entertain split rates. And this year, it's really much of the same as last year and prior years. Where if you break down the classifications between residential and commercial, industrial, and personal property, the split just isn't wide enough to really, warrant a split tax rate. And I'm going to show you in a minute the different ratios that I have of percentages of valuation in town. Really, the rule of thumb is it's about 85% if a certain community has that 85% residential, 15% commercial, then I think it's worth taking a look at. Maybe you want to split the rate or that sort of thing. But again, I'm going to, show you the facts and let you decide, like you have in previous years, that it just, in my opinion, there isn't enough for a split rate. So let me just begin by does everyone have the package that I emailed at the beginning of the week?
Yeah, could we put it on the screen?
Actually,
Yes, I can. Do you have it, or do you want me to?
one or
Well, it'd
two
be good to put it on the screen so that those attending the meeting could see it as well.
Yes. Okay. Bear with me. No, I don't have permission to share anything.
I can share mine. Hold on, I'll share mine. There we go. Can everybody see that?
There we go. Perfect. I'm just going to go through these pages briefly.
Okay.
Just to give you an overview. So page 1, it just gives you a breakdown in the classifications of property, and over the year from last year to this year, the activity in town in these certain classifications. And again, it's all predicated on where the market was, the local market in town. Fortunately, we get a lot of single family home sales and a lot of condominium home sales to be able to, set up some good models for our assessments. So in this page here, it shows you, say for single family homes, from last year, this year, the average assessment increase, and it's always a range, but the average was somewhere between 4.5%, maybe closer to 5%. And then if you move across from left to right, you can see the comparison of last year's average tax bill compared to this year's projected tax bill. And I say projected because the tax rate hasn't been approved yet. We have a pretty good idea of where it's going to be. Right now, we're looking at $15.96 per thousand. That's a decrease from about 20 cents from last year's rate. So on the far right, the column on the far right, the average increase from last year to this year, for single family homes, it's approximately $234. And for condominiums, going across the board, the increase, the approximate increase is about $219. And both of those are down a little bit from last year. So I can go through the other classes quickly.
Yeah, before you go, Rich, when you say they're down, you're saying the percentage increase from last year to this year is lower than the year before.
The actual increase in dollars, tax dollars, are down from last year.
Okay.
So if people compare from last year to this year, they will probably see a little bit of an decrease in their bill from last year to this year. The average increase.
Okay, so the increase isn't as high this year overall as it was last year.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And Rich, just to clarify, the increase is due to home values rising, not because the tax rate is rising. That's where the decrease is, correct?
Right. Both of those functions are inverse. As assessments increase, generally it drives down the tax rate. So that's why you're seeing a decrease in the tax rate. And again, I have to emphasize that the assessments are born out of where the market is. And for single family homes and condominiums this past year, the sales have been through the roof. And even as we speak now, the sales are up still. So there hasn't been any let up in those two classes. Just to finish off the rest of this, multifamily homes, those are 2 families and 3 families. Those are up, the assessments are up on average about 3.5%. Vacant buildable lots, little bit of an increase there from last year, about 3%. Large apartments, those are the larger apartment complexes. Those are up about 6%. Big increase there. Mixed use about 5%. Commercial and industrial about 3%. Not a huge increase there in that sector. Maybe that'll pick up a little bit next year, but this year is about 3%. And personal property, the total class increased about 10% from last year to this year. 2 things that were really driving that is the new solar project off Memorial Drive and utilities in town. Those 2 are really driving the increase in assessments for personal property.
Okay.
And at the bottom, you can see that the Board of Assessors recommends a single tax rate for fiscal year 2021.
Okay, next page.
Next page. Yeah. So page 2, again, it's just an overview of this year compared to last year. You can see that the total valuation is up a little bit over 5% of an increase from last year. The breakdown, if we look down towards the bottom of the page, the breakdown from last year to this year is about the same. The residential percentage is 90.77%. That was up from 90.71% last year. So it did change a little bit, not much, but again, the way it's trending is the residential side is increasing in value, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property class, they're not increasing by the same amount. So, any questions concerning that page? If not, we can flip to the next one. So this page, it shows you the splits, and it's just, the share percentages between residential and commercial. Up top, it shows you the value of each class, the tax levy, the current tax levy. That may change a little bit, I'm not sure. And then the single tax rate right now is projected to be $15.96. Hopefully that won't change after the special town meeting.
Because Rich, just to clarify, even though the assessments have gone up by almost 5%, we can still only raise our tax levy by 2.5% for these taxes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Good point. So it's a little hard to explain the way the shift works, but if you want to look at the shift of 10%, that's probably the easiest way to explain this. As you can see on the page, I've broken it down in increments of 5%, from 0 down to 50%, 50% being the highest you can go to shift. So when I say shift, it's a shift from a single tax rate. So if Ashland went with a 10% shift, that would mean that from that single tax rate of $15.96 per thousand, at a 10% shift, the residential tax rate would drop about 17 cents, and those are round numbers too. So they vary a little bit. So that rate would drop from $15.96 down to $15.79 per thousand. While on the commercial side, that it would increase from a single rate up to $17.55, an increase of $1.59 on that tax rate. So you can see within that shift, and you can use any percentage you want. Anytime you shift that percentage, on the residential side, you're going to decrease that single tax rate a little bit. On the commercial side, the increase is far greater. So that's something to keep in mind. And I always think that in a community that's always looking to attract more commercial industrial business in town, a higher tax rate doesn't bode well for bringing in new business. So right now, I just want to touch on the single tax rate of $15.96. It's coming down 20 cents from last year. We've come down 7 straight years now in the tax rate. And there was one thing I had hoped to do before tonight's meeting, and I know I did this last year, where I would post Ashland's projected tax rate against the surrounding towns. I called around, and most of the towns are in the predicament that we are in, where they haven't set their tax rate yet. So they don't know what their tax rate is going to be. But in previous years, Ashland has always been on the low side compared to surrounding towns. So I just want to wrap this up by just saying that, in my opinion, a single tax rate is the way to continue. The Board of Assessors, they recommend a single tax rate as well.
Other pages, yes.
Yeah, on this last page, you can see that I've charted the tax rate trending downward for the past 7 years.
And I think the hard part for people to understand is, even though our tax rate has been trending down, their taxes keep going up for this particular portion of their taxes because the home values have gone up.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
So, okay.
Any questions?
Can I ask one?
Yep.
No, just I think it's a good opportunity when we have Rich on here to kind of explain how some of the valuations are created and how some things might benefit the town more than others. So Rich, you take a property like the Blockbuster property over on 126. So that's been vacant for many years, right? And now it's occupied, it's been refurbished. It's now a nice Mediterranean restaurant. So how does it work in terms of, how does the town benefit financially from that type of transformation?
The town benefits in a couple of ways financially in a case like that. So this past year and a half, that whole plaza split. They divided off. They split off both buildings. So that the old Blockbuster building that you're referring to, that is now in its own parcel, and it was converted to a restaurant this past year. So we picked up a lot of new growth with that development of the restaurant, and also now as its own parcel with a much higher assessment than it would have been as a vacant building. In terms of taxes, we benefit in that area as well. So, it was a win in a couple of areas by refurbishing that building into a nice restaurant.
Nice. Sorry to put you on the spot, Rich.
No, that's fine. Any others?
No, I just think we could, would you say the same thing has also happened with a place like the Telecron building, which has gone through kind of a transformation over, the last few years in terms of its upgrade of its space? And I'm trying to, maybe even the Papagino's. I don't know if the Papagino's saw that much of a transformation when it converted from Papagino's, or at least when it was vacant to Morrow's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and the same with the United Home Experts building on Pleasant Street. The taxes from that, I'm sure, have increased due to the improvements that they've done at that building.
Yes, both those assessments have increased, and they continue to increase as the owners invest more and more in those buildings. So it's very beneficial to Ashland.
I just want to point out that's one of the reasons why we look at revitalizing some of these old dilapidated properties, is so it also brings new vitality to those neighborhoods. It also has a direct financial benefit as well, because that new growth is additional tax revenue that we're getting that we don't have to go to existing taxpayers for. So just thanks, Rich, for kind of illustrating that.
Absolutely.
Great. Are there any questions from any other select board members? Just unmute yourself.
Just want to thank Rich for his hard work.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? I also know some of our assessors, our Board of Assessors members are on, so thank you for your work with Rich. It's always good to see. And, most of us sitting here, except for Brandy, have sat through a few of these. So it's always interesting that you do recommend the single tax rate. But I think as people look at it, certainly, and I'm going to go back to this screen 1 second, to see what it would be to give us any kind of split tax rate wouldn't really be giving much relief to our residential citizens and residential property owners, but the impact it would be to our commercial property owners, I think, is very large. And as you've said, Rich, and as Michael have said, we're always trying to get more business in town. So if there's ways that we can make it so it's a little bit easier for them to be looking at Ashland and to consider Ashland, I think it's always good to do that.
And I would also say to stay in Ashland, because I
Right.
think the taxes changed on the commercial side. I think businesses may reconsider whether they stay in Ashland. So
Right.
That slide is a really good illustrative point. So thank you, Rich, for your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair, I do have one quick question that I'd like to ask
Go ahead.
Rich, and it's probably the wrong time to do this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. With all the Class 2 licenses that we have issued to the town, in town, do you see an increase in excise taxes that are coming through with respect to, you know, the vehicles that are being now garaged and stored in town because of these Class 2 licenses?
No, I don't think that has much of a bearing on the excise tax from year to year. I think mostly it's the economy and whether people are buying new cars or you know, putting off a new purchase a little bit longer. And you know, I think that factors in more than anything else.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? So we're not going to vote on this tonight. We do need a motion to hold it over until our meeting on the 16th.
Just
Michael?
one point of clarification. That's correct, right? They need to hold it because they're only going to vote on whether a split or a single tax rate, right? That's all the select board votes on.
Correct.
Okay.
May I just point out that the board can take a vote tonight if it wishes, because what you're voting on is whether to split the rate or keep it as a single rate. That's all you're voting on. When we close out the classification hearing next week, the board will have to take another vote on the excess levy, which is shown in the LA5. The LA5 is not complete right now because the special town meeting is coming up next week. And we have to get past the special town meeting before we can complete the LA5. Once the LA5 is completed, the select board will then vote basically that they know what the excess capacity is at that point.
Okay. So you're saying, Rich and Michael, it's best for us to take the vote on whether or not we're going to do a single tax rate and then pause the hearing until we can vote the second
That's what
portion.
the board's done in the past, yeah.
Okay. I think we typically haven't had to do, but that's okay. So if I can get a motion that we have a single tax rate for fiscal year 2021.
So moved.
I got a motion. If I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Joe and a second from Rob. Any other discussion on the single tax rate? If not, I'll take a roll call vote. Kinsman?
Aye.
Mignani?
Aye.
Mitchell? I didn't hear him and I didn't see him.
Where is he?
Aye.
There you go. Thank you, Steve. And Shear?
Aye.
And Greaves, aye. That passes 5-0. We will continue with our single tax rate for fiscal year 2021. Okay, and we will now pause the hearing until our next meeting, which will be December 16th.
Okay, so motion to suspend this hearing until select board meeting of 12/16.
Thank you. If I can get a second.
I'll second.
Great. Got a motion from Steve and a second from Brandy. Roll call vote. Kinsman?
Aye.
Mignani?
Aye.
Mitchell?
Aye.
Shear?
Aye.
And Greaves, aye. And that also passes 5-0. So we'll finish this on December 16th. Wow. Great. Rich, thank you. Board of Assessor members that are here, thank you also. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point.
What is that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Rich.
Steve. Thanks, Dave.
Rich. Dave.
Thanks
Steve.
for all your work, guys.
Okay. Moving on to our consent agenda. Approve regular session minutes from November 18th, 2020. Accept the donation made to the library in the amount of $340 in memory of Evelyn Gates. Accept the grant from the MIIA in the amount of $10,000 for AI phone project. Notification of the town manager's appointment of Anand Vladimirev as the activity and volunteer coordinator as the replacement for Kim Katob, and notification of the town manager's appointment of Ryan Fitzgerald as an intermittent dispatcher. If I can get a motion to approve as read.
So moved.
And if I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Joe and a second from Steve. Roll call vote. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shear,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye, and that passes 5-0. And as we discussed, we are going to move up the Eversource update to now out of the town manager's report, and then we'll go into the rest of our old new business. Michael?
Like I said, I don't have too much to report. So we do not have any update at all on the wetlands appeal. So we're still waiting for a hearing date on the motion to dismiss that we filed. The courts, I don't know if you're aware of this, the courts shut down again due to some of the COVID increases. And unfortunately, we're not clear when the court is actually going to be able to reach or hear it. So that's on the wetlands appeal side. On the EFSB, the Energy Facility Siting Board, as you know, both parties, they've exchanged information requests in terms of complying with the presiding officer's order. So right now we're in a waiting game with the siting board. While we're doing that, Brian Winter, our attorney, he's actually looking into, whether there's merit and opportunity to request another full hearing date. And we do have that option, but it would need to be supported by good cause. And just so everybody knows, Eversource, they would undoubtedly oppose it, file their own briefs associated with that. And then the hearing officer would need to make a ruling. So essentially we're in a holding pattern with both jurisdictions. So hopefully we will hear more. So we can have a pattern.
Could I ask Michael, just ask a question? So, Eversource's last, as I understand it, their last response was on November 13th to the siting board. We had filed just a quick review. The siting board limited the partial reopening to the questions about replacing the pipe, right? Basically. Yeah. And there's been, we filed actually asking a number of detailed questions, mostly around, as I understand, construction of the pipe really needs more plan, if this, how much this land court decision really makes a difference. We'd asked about differences in their filings and the wetlands, et cetera. And their latest response, as I understand, November 13th, is that, their plan is to go approach landowners, get their agreement, and then move ahead, but they're not going to do anything, no plans, no filing until they've negotiated with the landowners and gotten an agreement. And our position is, of course, opposing that they have to file plans. And their latest response was basically saying that they don't need to do additional design or engineering. They don't need additional time. And I guess my question is, what are we thinking about a response to that? Do we have, my understanding is that we have 2 weeks to respond. So I guess my question is a procedural question. What is, are we going to respond to that or just leave it? And do we have time to make a response?
So that's what Brian was working on when I said that he's looking at, merit and opportunity to request another hearing date on the matter. Mm-hmm. So instead of just letting the siting board decide based on the information requests and the responses and that limited set of information, what he's looking at doing is seeing if we can actually reopen the hearing based on the information requests and the information that's provided, and then be able to introduce evidence, cross-examine witnesses, etc.
And would the hearing be about the limited aspect that the Chair Sharkey has laid out, or would it be a request to change those basic parameters?
I mean, we feel like our initial questions have merit. I think that's probably the best way to answer it. And just because Eversource didn't answer them doesn't mean that they're not without merit. So I believe that, you know, when we're talking about looking at an opportunity and looking at, you know, how we can, how
I would also think, Rob, that we don't want Michael to say too much
Well,
that
but
could,
okay,
you know, publicly affect.
perhaps. So I'll leave that.
you
I'll
know,
leave
any
that up to
bargaining we still
Michael's
have.
judgment. But if we
Okay.
do need to, if there are things we shouldn't say publicly, then I think we should have executive session to review what Brian and Michael are thinking on this
Okay,
and what our
we
next
can
steps
plan
should
that.
be.
I think, you know, to piggyback a little bit on Rob, my reading of the November 13th response by Eversource was essentially a series of non-responses to pretty much every question. And, you know, to me, and it strikes me the same way I think it struck Kathy Rooney about this appeal to increase the usage of gas appliances, is an arrogance that comes through on these responses. And, you know, it's so unclear how the siting board would respond to that. I know we're responding in a particular way because it just comes off as just so arrogant. But you know, you're right, Rob. I mean, there's no you know, there's a total lack of answering. You know, they've provided all of these answers, and they're staying with what they're proposing.
And I guess so. Just to get back to Michael, and you know, I'm just concerned about the process. And do we have, you know, are we what kind of response are we putting together to go to this discovery phase, which seems like a sound strategy. I think we could use a little bit detailed discussion. And if you don't think we could have an open session, we should try to, I think, schedule a session with Brian as to his latest thinking on this.
you know, or at least have him provide just a kind of at least a summary.
Yeah, that's another alternative, sure. Because I think it's important for the board to weigh in on some of these points, or at least the direction in at least an informal way, and preferably a more formal way. So Michael, I think you were saying we're going to file something soon to ask for a more fuller discovery, or what's the?
So what Brian's working on is, right now he's investigating the opportunity and the merit of requesting full hearing based on the based on Donna Sharkey's order. So right now, the siting board and the presiding officer, she has basically three sets of information. She has Eversource's initial brief, our response where we asked a lot of questions, and then Eversource's answers, which I think we can all say unequivocally are non-answers, right? So right now, that is what she is looking at in terms of making a decision as to what to do moving forward. What we're exploring is whether or not to use this as an opportunity to request opening the hearing again. And again, that gives us the opportunity to introduce additional evidence, cross-examine witnesses. But it doesn't mean that just because we file it, that it will be accepted.
All right. So I would ask, Madam Chair, I would ask that we entertain, have an executive session next week if Brian's ready to just discuss that, if people feel that's appropriate.
Okay, I will follow up with Michael and when, you know, work with Brian.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Do we feel like we should open this up for public questions? I don't know that we have a lot of extra information to give.
Well, I'd like to hear from people if there's people have observations. I know Chuck has done some detailed review, for example. So.
Okay, we can give it a few minutes. Chuck, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say something which I think the board does not want to comment on, but as many of you know, the Attorney General has sent a memo to the DPU saying, or no, PUC, saying, petition to them saying that they need to explain how their policies and their procedures fit with the 2050 goal of radically reducing our climate change emissions. And I think what that comes down to for us is that to the degree that we can delay this without spending too much of the town's money, I am aware that, you know, this can get expensive, but to the degree we can delay it every 6 months, we're likely to have a more sympathetic siting board and other regulatory things with it. So I think it's worth thinking not only do we need this information, but how does this slow up the process?
Okay, thank you. Keith Ferguson, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Keith Ferguson, 5 Old Country Path. Again, I'd like to thank the town for continuing to press this issue. Rob, I think you said that Eversource was going to reach out to the abutting homeowners or whatever, but my reading of one of their last information exchanges on the docket was that they were not going to reach out until the siting board had approved their plan to reach out to the homeowners. So I guess my question to
I'm sorry, I think that's right. I may have misstated that, but that's my understanding as well. They're going to wait and get a go ahead. Yeah.
My question to Mike and everyone else is, if they do reach out, do you think 5 million is enough for me to ask for, or I mean, like 7 million, right? That's a good number, right? I should go for like 7 million.
No, they're your property rights, Keith. And,
okay. Okay, sure. All right. Wow, aim big, I guess. Another thing that I'd like to just bring up for the public record is, as you know, I'm one of the trustees of the Great Bend Farm Trust, which the pipeline runs through. And I'm assuming, even though they never contacted us in the past, that Eversource would reach out to the Farm Trust to see what the Farm Trust might be interested in getting. So I just like to state publicly that the Great Bend Farm Trust will be against anything they offer us to allow them to change the easement right or right of way or anything like that. 10 million may change my mind. I don't know. We'll see. But again, you know, I think
as long as I get a cut of that, Keith.
Well, you know, we'll talk executive session.
I would one thing I would add seriously though, review the language that they talk about the process. It's like the landowners they're proposing would get 2 options: either, yeah, do what you want to do originally, or we'll take the pipe out. There's no discussion of other means of doing it, and legally, I think they're claiming they can do that. But
yeah, well, but so like, what are they going to do if I say take the pipe out and the person next to me says don't? Are they going to chop it up into little bits? It seems kind of crazy to me. Yeah. So I think if enough people say no, then that makes it starts to make it not worthwhile for them, I would hope. But anyway, thank you for the session. I'm going to mute myself now. I'll hide my pretty face too.
Okay. Mark,
thanks, Keith.
Jasoni.
Thank you for bringing it up and having it open up to the public. First, through the chairman to town manager, thank you. Knowing the steps are going to be through with the siting board and the lawyers and all the attorneys involved. And to the last commenter there from, he said, money can talk and can be agreeable. That's how you're going to stretch it out to become a long battle, because you'll be talking money and everybody's got to be thinking money and not town property because it's their own. The reason why I'm saying that, because it's got to be extended from neighborhood blocks to across the 126. So if you start talking money, you're going to start talking maybe on the state superior court sort of thing. It might get up that high. So I'm just saying thank you for the update. And Eversource, this is nothing new what I've been knowing, hearing, and been following for the past a couple of years now. And if they do understand the people, they would be more helpful. But they only understand, and like I said, that it's his participation. The conning people, they're gonna say no every single time, line in the pockets, and the pipeline is only for their name and not a positive. Just like our past presidential election, nobody wants to give up what is not theirs, what should give up to help others that are out there to have to work through it. Town property, personal property, fight for that. And the Citizen Board, you got to give all the credit in the world for them because they're understanding what's going on. And I still say the right away, the things that's in that I gave out is a major cog. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Okay. We are going to move on from, I'm not seeing any other hands. We're going to move on from our Eversource update. We're going to go into old and new business. First thing is to review our annual license renewals. Susan was kind enough to provide us with some motions on these. I just need to pull mine up. Go.
Are you going to share the screen, Yolanda?
I could if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that way people have a better understanding of what we're trying to do or what we're doing. Thanks.
Hold on. So this is a review and renewal of our various licenses that we as the select board have to review. And here is a list. Oh, I gotta hit share. Okay, so we are renewing annual licenses, which include alcoholic beverages, amusement devices, billiards, Class 2 and Class 3, club, common victicular, entertainment, hobby, lodging house, and wine and malt. So.
To save time, can we do them all at one time or do we have to do them individually?
I think we have to do them individually, which is why Susan gave them to us like this.
Okay. Thank you, Susan.
So to make it easy, if I could have one person make the motion and a second person make the seconds, and then we can just go through that way.
Would you like me to take your place?
Sure, go for it, Joe.
Motion to approve the alcohol restaurant license as presented.
Second.
Okay, we're gonna do this. All those in favor, just raise your hand because I can see everybody. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Next one.
Motion to approve the all alcohol retail list as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. That passes 5-0.
The motion to approve the billiards list as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Motion to approve the Class 2 licenses as presented.
Second.
Don't fall asleep on me.
All those in favor, raise your hands. Aye. Come on, be on the ball, Steve.
All right.
Motion to approve the Class 3 license as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Aye, that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Motion to approve the club licenses as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. That passes 5-0.
Motion to approve the common vicular license as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Aye, that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Motion to approve the entertainment license as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Motion, did I just do the entertainment license?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Motion to approve the hobby license as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, there we go. Good.
Motion to approve the lodging house license as presented.
Second.
Aye.
Aye, thank
Aye.
you. That's 5-0.
Motion to approve the Sunday entertainment licenses as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, thank
Aye.
you. That passes 5-0.
Motion to approve the wine and malt restaurant licenses as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, that passes 5-0.
Motion to approve wine and malt retail licenses as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you,
stop
Susan.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you,
efficient.
Susan, for all of those.
We've gotten much more efficient doing these over the last few years.
We still be
Well,
reading the first page.
when you finally all get under the understanding of what really needs to be happening. So thank you again, Susan. Thank you, Joe. Thank you,
My pleasure.
Steve. Those have all been renewed for another year. And thank you to all those businesses who are staying and working here in Ashland. We appreciate you and what you do. Next is review the December 8th, now December 9th, 2020 special town meeting warrant. Michael.
Yes, and thank you for starting off, noting that the date has now changed.
Yes.
For those of you that do not know and have not heard, the moderator has used his authority to postpone the special town meeting scheduled for December 8th, 2020 to the following day, December 9th, which is a Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m. Just to accommodate some of the logistical issues that we were coming up against as part of these discussions. Since the board closed the warrant and posted the warrant at the last meeting, we've had a couple of meetings. We had one with FinCom where we got our recommendations. We've also had a meeting with a couple of property-specific committees, namely the Valentine Committee. And so there's been some changes that I'm going to be recommending, and I think it might be good for us to just kind of run through some of those. Also, well, that's about it. I'll do that. How's that? Again, article number 1 is a free cash transfer. We will be transferring the majority of the money into the general rainy day fund, a little over $300,000 into our OPEB trust, also $517,000 into the capital account. Article 2 is adjusting the 2021 budget. Essentially what we're going to do is be appropriating the money, the increase in state aid that we had not budgeted for to departmental expenses, namely the school department, and then on the municipal side, inspectional services, health, town managers, contracted services, and then facilities. Facilities being the big one, because we're going to need to start our own facilities department as opposed to sharing one with the schools. And then the additional revenue that we get in new growth, and actually Rich referred to, the way some of that new growth is calculated when we get new revitalized properties back on the tax rolls. That money is going to be appropriated into the rainy day fund as well. Article 3 will be the property tax, the 41C.5 property tax exemption. Again, we'll be increasing that to $800 this year. Articles 4 and 5 are related to the BRAVE Act, which provides benefits for veterans. The first one provides a full tax exemption for Gold Star families. Those are families that have lost family members in the line of duty. And the second one is a tax work-off program for veterans and their qualifying spouses. But Article 6, now we're going to get into, I think, some things that we either added last minute or have changed since the board closed. Article 6 is the land taking of the gift property at 12 to 16 Union Street. I think everybody understands that that's an oxymoron. Unfortunately, we've been put in a place where the gift property that Fafford was supposed to give us, again, although he has signed a gift agreement back in 2018, articulating what each party needed to do to effectuate the deed transfer, he has not followed through with transferring that deed. So we're in the position of having to take that property at this point in time. We could have gone on and we could have, continued to drag this out, but we're at a point where, we need to basically take this action, unfortunately. Those who look at the warrant and look at the motion associated with the warrant will see that it talks about The 3.82 parcel, 3.82 acre parcel, which is the gift property, and then also an additional parcel of 8.55 acres, which is the additional property around that. That does not mean that the board is going to take the full property if the board has authorization from town meeting. It just means that the board has the option to do that moving forward. And that's consistent really with the gift, the acceptance of the gift article that was done in the November 2018 town meeting. So keep things consistent that way. Articles 7 and 8 are related to the Valentine property. The first one is a zoning change. The second one is the authorization for the select board to either sell or lease the property. After discussion with the Valentine committee, it made sense that we pull both articles just because it was really going to be hard to have a full vetting of any proposals that came in. Subsequent to that, we did get one proposal. But my recommendation will be that we pull that. Article 9.
That'll just happen on town meeting floor.
Yes, it'll need to happen on town meeting floor, simply because the board had closed and posted the warrant before this decision was made.
Okay.
Article 9 is accepting the boundary changes for 433 Chestnut or the Hall House. That's what Katie was referencing earlier at the beginning of the meeting. That swaps some parcel lines and also gets rid of an easement. Article 10, it's a land taking. So what we call a friendly taking, and that's of an easement at Independence Lane, which is actually owned by the Homeowners Association. Unfortunately, the Homeowners Association is not legally in effect. So we have organized this with the help of the Homeowners Association, an eminent domain taking of this easement. And this is because we want to put a booster pump station to help service that neighborhood as Robert Hill Way starts to become occupied. We've been concerned about the water pressure issues there before Robert Hill Way. Obviously, when the Robert Hill Way development was going through its permitting process, that exacerbated some of those concerns. And so we figured out a way to where we'll actually have the piece of property from the Homeowners Association. And EA Fish is actually going to be building the booster pump station and again, gifting it over to the town. So that has saved us a significant amount of money and saved ratepayers a significant amount of money. Article 11 is amending a general bylaw to add the ability to lien stormwater fees onto properties. This is congruent with what the town, actually all cities and towns in Massachusetts do with like their water and sewer bills and their trash bills. Gives us the ability to, again, lien that property and have basically a lien against that property. So before it could be sold or anything, the money would be paid back to the town. I will say that this has been, I think it's important to note that this is being sponsored by the Stormwater Advisory Committee. It's not being sponsored by myself. It's not being sponsored by the Select Board. It is being sponsored by the Stormwater Advisory Committee.
Michael, just a quick question on that. Are there any issues? I'm just interested in having things that are pretty cut and dried. So, I mean, do you have any concerns? Are there going to be technical issues with this or?
Well, I have some technical issues with it. I do. And I'm going to see if I can be at a place where I can answer them confidently by town meeting.
Okay.
And if I'm not, I will say I'm not.
And then maybe we would consider taking it off if we're not ready. That would be, I think.
It's, yeah, I'm interested in finding out, at least just from a
Okay.
point.
All right.
So just another quick question, Michael. I mean, is this language consistent with the language for water and sewer, for other fees and that the town assesses?
Yeah, it actually references, it's an amendment to our own bylaw. And I haven't done a line by line analysis of it, but it's similar, yes, if not exact.
Yep.
I will say the finance committee recommended to move forward with this.
Michael, is the Stormwater Committee going to do a presentation to explain why they're wanting to move forward with this? No.
Not that I'm aware of. I have not been contacted about that. Article 12, these next two are CPC related articles. First is Rob, wait for it, the construction of the the Trolley Brook Trail, which
Trolley
is a
Brook Trail, yeah.
trail. So it's seeking an appropriation of $120,000 from CPC. Again, that in turn will be matched up with state grant funds that were awarded, as well as funds from the town's general fund. Article 13 is for a town forest enhancement project. It's actually a bundle of a number of smaller projects in the town forest, less than $10,000. And then Article 14 is really a cleanup article to basically clean up some sections of the zoning bylaw related to design review. That's actually going to be pulled as well, just not doing zoning related issues with this. So we've almost got it down to 10 articles.
Right.
So I don't know, you never know. We still have a week.
Michael, for the two articles in regards to the 433 Chestnut and the land taking for the booster pump, will there be a map available so people can see, for 433 Chestnut, what's being taken and what's being given? And then also a map available for Trolley Brook Trail so people can see where it's going to be built?
Yes, and then also the Independence Lane.
Great, thank you.
And I don't know, that's a wrap for that one.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions from the select board on the town meeting warrant? And Michael, you are going to do hold on, Rob, sorry. You're going to do a Zoom forum between now and town meeting to review questions with people or not?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to, just because the nights have been booked. Now that I have another night, so I have Tuesday night, I could potentially do it.
Okay.
But I've had meetings every night this week or something. Joe and I were on TV last night. So
okay.
See what we can do.
Oh, I just had a question about the Valentine's Day, but we can do that under priority project updates if we're going to.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I have related to that.
Great. Hold on, moving on our agenda. Special town election for January 13th and the ballot questions.
All right. So first, Susan, I believe Susan provided you with some ballot questions. What I'm going to do is actually put it up on my screen just because I did this really relatively quickly. And then I will explain the process that we need to follow.
Great.
Thanks for bearing with me.
Mm-hmm. Fun with technology.
I know.
While you're doing that, I can wish Catherine a happy birthday. She had a birthday a couple of days ago. Yesterday.
Happy birthday. Okay, is this working?
Got to remember to hit share in the little right-hand corner.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time bringing you up on the screen. So
this came to us separately, correct?
Yeah, I just want to make sure for version control we're going from the right one. That's it.
Yolanda, Sue sent another full agenda.
Yeah, I know.
With the addition to the back.
This is actually one of those situations where I took a shot.
I have it, Michael, if you want me to hit share again.
Well, you know what? I don't think we need to do that. Okay. All right.
There we go.
Can people see that? Okay. So the first thing that the board needs to do is actually open the warrant for the special town election that is going to be held on Wednesday, January 13th. So if the board could make a motion to do that, that would be great. And we can move forward.
I can get a motion to open the warrant for the special town election to be held on January 13th, 2021.
Motion to open the warrant for special town election to be held on January 13th, 2021.
If I can get a second.
I'll second.
Great. I have a motion and a second. We're going to do roll call vote on this. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani, Mitchell,
Aye.
Shear,
Aye.
and Greaves. Aye.
That was aye for me. I was muted.
Okay. That passes 5-0. We've now opened the warrant for the special town meeting. Michael, go ahead, take us through the ballot questions, please.
Okay, this should really be no surprise to anybody, but we're looking at holding a special election to vote on 2 debt exclusion projects or debt exclusion funded projects. First one being the public safety building, the second one being the new Mendez School. So both of these ballot questions will need to be on that warrant. I'll just run through them. The first one is, shall the town of Ashland be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to fund the project management, construction, and equipping a new public safety building and related facilities, including site work, and for the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. And it's a yes or a no. Second question is, shall the town of Ashland be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to fund the design, project management, and construction, equipping and outfitting a replacement school facility for the existing David Mendez School and associated demolition and site work located at 90 Concord Street, which shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children for at least 50 years. This is a lot more specific, well, actually broader, but then at the same time more specific, just because of the MSBA requirements. So I know everybody is probably, if you're watching this at home and you're looking at this, you're probably scanning it and saying, okay, where is the dollar amount? So unfortunately, due to Mass General laws, we can't include the dollar amount on the ballot questions, on these debt exclusion questions. I still have not got a good reason as to why that is the case, but unfortunately, that's what it is. So these are the 2 questions that would be on the ballot.
Madam Chair, I just have a question. Michael, could you talk a little bit about the scheduling, how you picked this date and how the logistics will work on the election?
Well, logistics will still be worked on, but the ability so having it on a Wednesday makes things much better for us logistically, just because there are no kids in the school during that day. That's almost like there's the swing day. So in terms of having to navigate around classes being held and things like that, we don't have that obstacle. And it's the Wednesday after the special town meeting.
Okay.
I have a question as well. Are there provisions that allow for this type of election, town election, to allow for either early voting or absentee voting, or similar to what we just experienced?
Absentee voting, yes.
Absentee voting, yes. Okay.
So just so that you know, there is the legislature, during their discussion for the budget, is looking to extend the ability to do early voting and mail-in voting for local elections from January 1st to June 30th. You would have to request the mail-in voting or the absentee voting similar separately for each one, but they are looking to extend some of the ability to vote remotely as was done for the general elections in the fall, but it has not passed yet.
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's an interesting discussion we should think about. I mean, what is our, what's our thinking on that? Is that something we should push for or consider, or?
Yeah, I personally, I think, it seemed, my observation was that the early / absentee mail-in voting was very effective, and particularly in light of COVID, I think it's something I would agree with you, Rob, something that we should certainly push for. Hopefully the legislature provides for that sooner rather than later, but we can't depend on it, unfortunately.
No.
Michael, would Tara and her team have enough time between now and January to be able to get those ballots organized and out?
No, I'm going to say no. Unless there's a huge infusion of resources, which, even when you get the infusion of resources, you have to manage that, you have to organize it, you have to plan. It would be very, very difficult. I don't want to say no, but I think it's a tall task.
Yeah. Well, no doubt it would be challenging, but these are challenging times. So I think we should explore.
Well, we can explore it, and I understand it's challenging times, but there are limits to what people can do.
Right. I would think that for this election, we should at least plan for absentee ballots, which we've always had the ability to do.
Yeah, absentee ballots, absolutely.
So.
I'm wondering though, because municipal elections it's going to be far smaller than the one that we just successfully handled. How does it affect Tara and her crew, Michael? The fact that it's going to be a smaller turnout, I would think.
Well, I think a lot depends on what this legislation says. And so if it looks back to, I think, May of 2020, I think opting into the mail-in system at that point, you only had to do it once, and then you were eligible for mail-in ballots through the rest of the elections throughout 2020. If that is still in effect.
My understanding, based on the question and the discussion, this was through a policy committee meeting that I'm in, was that people would have to re-request a mail-in ballot, and it would have to be for each local election.
That could,
as of right now. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a little bit more manageable. Again, I don't want to say no. I think there's a lot of stuff that's still outstanding.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Do we need a motion to insert the questions?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So I move to insert the ballot questions as presented on the special town election ballot to be held on January 13th, 2021.
Second.
Okay. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Scherer,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. Okay. We have another motion to take for the special town election.
So a motion to close the warrant for the special town election and notify the town clerk of the same.
Second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Scherer,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. Kathy Rooney, I see your hand is raised. Hopefully it's a quick question.
I don't know if it's quick, but thank you for acknowledging that I had a question.
Yeah.
I'm actually more than a little concerned about these two ballot questions, because the 2.5 overall coverage, and I get what Michael was saying about we can't legally put the amount up there, but if there's problems on this job and it runs over, then the taxpayers are on the hook no matter what. And it sounds like some of the baloney that went on up at the high school with the playing fields and that whole boondoggle. And honestly, I'm not anxious to revisit that again, and I don't think anybody else in town is. And I'm also highly concerned, based on information that I'm getting about what's about to happen to our economy due to COVID, due to the unfunding of all the people out of work, the fact that office buildings are about to be empty downtown. And I think we're about to face a real big economic downturn, and we're about to take on a boatload of extra debt in this town. And I think it's a problem. And I think you should be having more of a discussion and not rushing this special election so close. If you didn't rush the special election so close, you could actually have another meeting where this is all you discussed, with all the people in town who wanted to discuss it, and then we could have a special election. I just think that would be fair. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for your feedback. I would just, I understand people's concerns about this, but I believe that there has been discussions about these projects. You know, we took a vote, I forget how many years ago, to do the feasibility study for the Mendez project, and they've had many forums in regards to what's going on. But also the amounts do get voted on at town meeting. Am I correct, Michael, in that?
That is correct. So you can't,
Right, so this,
yeah, you can't exceed the appropriation amount without
right,
going.
so, right, so at the special town meeting that will happen for this, which is scheduled for January 9th, the questions will have the amounts of a not to exceed amount for the projects. So hopefully that will help some people. And between now and those 2 dates in January, we can certainly look at, we can reach out to, and I saw Paul Kendall from the Mendez School Building Committee here. And I know public safety, I'm sure we can have some more forums where if people want to have more questions, we can see about setting those up. With COVID, it's certainly been a little more difficult than with some of our other big projects where we've been able to have sort of what we call road shows where we go to different places. But also if, you know, as you're looking at the information, if people have questions, you can reach out to the Mendez School Committee, the Feasibility Committee. You can reach out to the Public Safety Committee, and you can also reach out to any of us here as Select Board members and Town Manager for any of those questions.
One thing, just to address that, Madam Chair, is it after the town meeting, will we have like informational pamphlets or anything at the voting places or other places just to update on what was passed at town meeting?
You can't.
Yeah,
just informational.
We would be able to have things that would be, as long as they were in compliance with campaign finance laws.
Yes, yes. So it could be like, so people would have, you know, I think a reasonable question, like what exactly, how much is this going to cost? And I don't remember from town meeting or whatever, or I wasn't there. So it'd be good to have it somewhere convenient or posted or easily accessible, like this is what we're talking about.
Right. Well, I would think that once town, you know, at the vote of town meeting, when we have, you know, when the amounts are voted, I'm sure we can get that out to people to let them know what was voted at town meeting and what they're supporting.
And if I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to answer some of the concerns that Kathy has, and I appreciate those concerns. We all have those concerns. And the Public Safety Committee is working diligently to make sure that the figures that come in for the town meeting are the accurate figures and hard figures. We've been working with our architects and our OPMs to make sure that these figures come in and they're the solid figures that we're hoping to have. One of the things that, and I agree with Catherine, that some of the concerns people have about the economy, well, it works both ways. When we put the bid out for the public safety building, one of the things that we weren't anticipating were the number of bids that were going to come in. And when the bids came in, there were 10 general contractors that put bids in. That's highly unheard of. You maybe get 2 or 3, but 10, people are out there screaming for work. So one of the desires, and we're hoping that this comes through, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that when the bids come in, that the figures are a lot lower. And because people want to work. They don't want to lay off their people. They don't want to shut the doors. They want to stay busy. They want to stay working. And to do that, you know, they'll cut their financing monies so that, you know, they can get the job to keep their people working instead of putting them, you know, on unemployment. So that's something that we have to look at as well. So it could be beneficial for the town as a whole. So I just wanted to relay that. But we also did a show the other night. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
No, we did another show the other night with John Featherston with his show, and it's on WACA. So folks keep an eye on that because there's additional information with respect to the financial aspect of it and how it's going to affect taxpayers and what we're anticipating. So hopefully that would ease some of the concerns that a lot of the residents have with respect to this. And we've had, you know, multiple forums on Zoom, unfortunately, and we'll continue having them until we saturate everybody with these figures and the needs for the public safety building. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. If there are no other questions or issues, we are all set for the special town meeting and for the special election. And we will make sure that we keep pushing information out to everybody, to all voters concerned, to make sure they have appropriate information. And again, if anyone has questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we will help you understand these votes and these issues. Moving on, priority project update. Michael, Rail Transit District.
Yeah, I really don't have much to update on that right now. No real update.
Okay. Downtown.
So downtown, so we do have movement. Construction is scheduled. We do have a construction date. It's scheduled to start finally on January 2nd. So we're excited about that. They'll start with the conduit work and some of the undergrounding work. Obviously, it's going to be weather dependent. We're scheduling right now the full pre-construction meeting for the next couple of weeks. One thing that's still outstanding, and I think the board, I did CC the board on some correspondence today that I had with Eversource. We're still waiting for their estimate, their final estimate on some of the equipment costs related to the project. And I think the frustration was pretty evident in my email. This has gone on pretty long enough. Having said that, I did receive an email from Mr. Rooney today saying that we will be provided that estimate very shortly. So that is good. And again, that pre-construction meeting will also be talking about traffic plans, getting the word out, how we're going to communicate things if there are going to be like road closures. We hope we don't have to do that, but anyway, that's where we'll start discussing that and finding a way to get that information out. So January 2nd, hopefully there's no snow on the ground. We'll have the golden shovels and everything. So yeah.
Great. Sounds fun. Hey, public safety building, any other updates other than the discussion we just had?
Really don't. No. Jen, when are the sub bids are due?
They were supposed to be due this Friday. We just had to push it to the 9th, and then but the general bids were staying the same, which is I believe the 18th.
So we'll definitely be. Okay. We'll definitely have a hard number well before town meeting, several weeks before. Although Christmas and New Year's will be in between that time, so that's good. And then. So moving on to the Warren District and Valentine Estate, we do have a walkthrough on the Warren barn next week. So those bids are out. We're hoping that attracts some, some competitive bids. Again, hopefully the construction market is such that it makes it very competitive. So we're looking forward with moving forward with that. Work on 433 Chestnut Street. I don't know if you've driven by there. We've completed the driveway that goes to the barn, everything now is really held up until the town meeting vote next week, and we can move forward with things. And then moving on to the Valentine estate, we did, again, just to, by way of background information for people that are watching and aren't familiar, we issued a request for proposals for interested parties to give us their conceptual ideas and whether they would look at leasing the property or purchasing the property. We did receive one full proposal from Legacy Development for a bed and breakfast function hall type of facility with some agricultural components and some educational components to that. And then we also received a letter of interest. So unfortunately, we couldn't consider it. It wasn't a full proposal from an organization called Waypoint Adventure, which does work with a lot of disabled kids and adults. And they looked at doing an educational facility that had a number of different components that the town thought would be compelling, you know, as this RFP was being put together. So we had a couple of good meetings, I think, with the Valentine Committee. A number of things came up and a number of issues were concerned. There's some enthusiasm for the project, at least the full proposal. Although I think everybody understood that there are still several things that need to happen before that proposal could move forward in terms of information that needs to be gathered, and then also, you know, some of the specifics and some of the particulars.
So a number of us sat in on the Valentine committee meeting on Monday. Steve or Brandy, do you have anything to add? And then Joe or Rob, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at the information that Jen sent us. If you have any questions, otherwise I thought moving forward, it might be good to have members of the Valentine committee come before us as they're doing this process. So it would be a public process of looking at these proposals.
I was able to read the letter from Lake Point, but the other documents, I don't know.
Right, we were shut out. We get in.
Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I attended the last two Valentine meetings, and I just want to comment that you know, the work that the committee has done. I thought they gave a great presentation the other night on the two proposals.
Yep.
You know, both of them to me sounded very interesting, even though the Waypoint wasn't a full-blown proposal. The concepts of what they were, or who they are, what they do, certainly was attractive and appealing to me. As Michael said, still a lot more information to be determined. You know, I think, you know, from my perspective and looking back at the vote when we authorized to purchase the property, you know, most, if not all of the conversations I had were representative of doing something with the property, doing something similar to what the Legacy company had proposed. Now, I'm not suggesting that we sign on to what Legacy is proposing. I'm just saying, but most, if not all of the people that I spoke to, myself included, anticipated doing something with the property along those lines, something creative, something that enhanced the community, something that, you know, took away the eyesore that exists today. And I think there's a concern as well. And, you know, at the last meeting, I mentioned the Josiah Smith Tavern in Weston, and they have been working on trying to do a project at that property, and something almost very similar to what we're looking at as well. But they've been over 12 years of trying to put something and make something happen there. And, you know, so from my perspective, I hope we don't get mired in this endless conversation and not start to move things forward and make something productive of whatever that might be, make something productive of that property. So I do want to shout out I thought that the two folks that gave the presentation, the other night, did a great job. And so my 2 cents.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Brandy?
So I would agree with Steve. I think that the proposals were, the one full proposal was a strong, strong proposal. It checked a lot of those boxes from the community feedback that we have received. You know, the discussion was great. I think that the committee has some good perspective. There's one member of the committee that has some experience and expertise in barns. So it's interesting to hear the feedback from the committee members. I think the other the letter of interest that we received was also interesting. Waypoint, I think it's a lot. That particular idea is a little less development oriented, which you know has a different feel to it. It's more a little bit more organic, I would say. But I agree with Steve. I think we need to make sure there's a path forward. I think that you know the barn doesn't have 10 years in it. So if we need to you know, I think we need to make sure that there is a path forward for whichever way that we go. I think that the committee will hopefully hear more feedback from the folks that that had submitted the proposal and the letter of interest. So hopefully it moves forward in an expedient fashion. But I think they were great proposals. I'm glad that we've received some ideas that are kind of in line with what we had put into the RFP, and that there are folks willing to invest into that property and make it sort of its full potential. So.
Yeah, it was nice. I sat in on the meeting as well. What was good for me to hear is at the end of the meeting that the committee did ask Michael and Jen to reach back out, working with Beth Reynolds, to ask some of the questions that some of the committee members had regarding the full proposal as well as the one from Wayside. So there is moving forward. And I agree with you, Steve and Brandy, that none of us want to see that barn deteriorate so much that it's no longer standing. I mean, one of the reasons we bought it is we want to maintain, we want to keep those buildings. And now it's just a matter of making sure we do it in a way that the town can support and that the town can benefit from. So,
yeah,
great. Okay.
Just to remind everybody just of next steps, those of you that were there, yes, so we will be meeting with Legacy Development and first seeing if they would be willing to hold their bid. So bids are only required to be held for 30 days. Obviously, if it's not going to be on this town meeting, it'd be on a future one, Legacy would need to be willing to extend their bid. Also, I plan on having a conversation about sale and leasing and just kind of opening the door on that conversation. And then I also have a call scheduled with Dan Minich from Waypoint. And hopefully I can have a conversation with him and figure out why he submitted a letter of interest that talked about a purchase as opposed to a lease and some other things. And then finally, you know, and I can't reinforce this enough, there have been some concerns, and I think they're good concerns raised about the CPA restrictions and the interaction, especially with the Ein and Hicks property, and Cynthia and Robin are here, and just how we can make sure that those protections are in place in perpetuity, the way they're meant to be. And so that things, again, we bought the property to not only keep the development from happening, but to also maintain the open space and the historical aspects of it. And I don't think anybody on this Zoom call or meeting or anybody on the Valentine Committee is interested in moving forward with anything that would actually jeopardize those. I know I'm not. So
I would agree with that.
That would, you know, that's paramount.
Yep.
So we'll be doing more legal research related to that.
Can I just ask a few questions, try to catch up a little bit? the barn condition. So this process is going to take a while. Do we need to do something immediately to keep the barn or the other buildings from deteriorating during the winter? And do we have a plan for that, or?
We do. David had received a couple of different estimates to shore
Okay.
up certain sections of the barn. That has to go through a full procurement process, and David should be developing that process and getting it out very soon. We will have to find funding associated with that, but we're anticipating probably in around the $30,000 range, which we should be able to handle.
Great. Okay, that's good. And so legally, we're still able to, both proposals can, well, one's a letter, but we're not planning to take immediate action, either accepting or rejecting. We can continue with both proposals. Is there any thought about further RFPs or other going back, or is that, are we pretty much?
I think it's, I think a lot depends, first of all, on whether the full proposal is even willing to keep their proposal open. I think that's like the first question that needs to be asked.
And I've heard some things. Can you tell us what the basic financial proposal is on this? Like, is the town going to be asked to come up with more funds or support for these proposals, or?
Yeah, that's a good point. So for the full proposal that we had received, the bidder is looking at purchasing the property for $1, but not only that, is looking at a financial contribution from the town of an additional $500,000, $500,000. Now, one of the things I would like to explore is, is there an expectation that that's, a cash type of transaction? Is it relief from fees? What exactly would that consist of?
Yeah, because I think we did pay a lot for that, and I think people are maybe willing to understand that it takes investment to develop it and move it on. But in terms of the town coming up with further funds, I think that would be.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the $1 sale price was not favorably received, Rob.
Okay, good.
Rob, if you asked me to, I didn't realize that you guys couldn't get into I guess it's because it's a large file. It's a shared Google Drive. So if you just ask for permission, Joe, I just gave you permission. So you should be able to see the full proposal. And if you can't, just let me know. I
was asking me for a password or something.
I think that if you just request permission, I think that I can just allow it. I think it's because it's a larger document. So I think it just creates a shared Google document.
Thanks, Jim.
Sorry about that.
I know we have a couple of people who sat either in on that meeting. I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to add or questions they'd like to ask. I mean, we opened up other stuff, so I'd like to open this up. Not seeing any hands raised. Mark, go ahead.
Not really
So Mark, I'm going to let you know that this is for if you have any questions, not discussion necessarily about what we do moving forward. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because that's not what this is about. This was just to update the select board who are not able to be in on the meeting.
Okay. Then the question would be, from what the town manager said and all the comments from everybody else on the board, what is the goal to happen? That's it.
Well, my understanding, the goal is to do something with this property that would, maintain the house and the barn, but create something there that the residents of Ashland could be proud of, as well as make sure the restrictions that were put on when we purchased the property can stay in place.
Yeah, I think actually Jen, with the help of the committee, had put together, I think, a very good opening statement as part of the RFP of what the goal is. And Jen, I don't know if you have that right in front of you, but If not, it's really, I mean, I can summarize it. It's to restore the property, maintain the open space and the historical elements while making it a productive asset for the community, a productive commercial asset for the community. Is that good, Jen?
It was good.
All right, thank you.
The only thing I would, that people might be feeling is that there's some sort of public benefit. I know that's a difficult thing to maybe quantify, but like, for example, the disability to have kids have exercise and agricultural and a large function hall. Those all sound like they have public.
Yeah, so Rob, that was actually part of the evaluation criteria. So it did break it
Right.
down into sort of public access and public use. Obviously, the letter of intent gives us very limited amount of information, just sort of concept. So you have to sort of, we don't know the level of what that would actually look like, but they did say that there would be some public access in the waypoint, whether it's using the buildings for town meetings or functions. And then the full proposal from Legacy did have educational components where you could use, and there was a community garden that would have public access, because we did
there would be access for people from town, either, if the full proposal was the bed and breakfast and event space, then if you lived in Ashland, you could get discounts. And if the town wanted to do something there, there'd be a partnership to be able to do that.
And my last very quick comment would be, now that Jen came on, would be in a percentage, what is the positive percentage of this actually going through to be happy for everyone? That's it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a true percentage that we can give you, Mark. At this point, it's still very, very early in the whole process. So, Robin, I noticed you had your hand up. You need to unmute yourself. You're muted. Bottom left, there you go.
I thought you had the power to mute me.
Nope.
And you probably wish you did. So, well, you know my feelings, but I'm going to keep this simple. The Legacy proposal, who is the chief principal of that, and who have they done work in the town previously?
You want me to answer?
Yes, please do, Michael.
Yeah, so it's a gentleman named Charles Zamudo.
I didn't catch that the other night, Mike.
Okay.
Who is it again?
It's Charles Zamudo. He is the one currently doing 12 Pond Street. I believe he also has other property in town, and I'm not sure if he's looking at developing that. He also had permitted a housing development on, I believe it's 19 Alden Street. That doesn't look like it's going through, at least at the moment, simply because there's some legal entanglements in terms of the real estate transaction itself.
I lost part of that. So he is a developer, yes. Michael?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so, again, as we talked about the covenants, historical and conservation, they haven't been in place yet. So if we did accept his proposal, he wouldn't have those in place going forward.
Yeah. Robin, I don't think we can actually transfer the property until those are in place.
Just a question.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't think that can even happen until those are filed and in place.
Go ahead, Cindy.
No, my only
Go ahead.
Addition to that is that a sale of this property should not even be presented without the care and custody being transferred to at least the town of Ashland, the Ashland Historical and Conservation Commissions to control in perpetuity. Otherwise, we have some real issues as to what can happen in the future, as well as that property and as well as null and voiding the covenant with our property. That's all.
And that's what
right.
the town.
I believe there's no one. Right. I believe there's no one here on this board who is looking to do anything that would void out the covenants that were put on the properties or voted in when we voted this purchase.
Yolanda, we agree.
So
we agree with you.
So I think that, you know, changing the care and custody of this property at this point, I don't know that that's necessary. I know there's still more legal work that has to be done as to who can actually hold the restrictions. So that work will continue. But that has to happen moving forward, no matter what we decide. And like I said, nothing is being done at this point. And like I said, anyone sitting here, you know, based on my understanding from the rest of my board, is none of us want to do anything that will do anything to void the covenants and the decisions and the will of the people when we purchase this property.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would think, just to add, that whoever, whether it's us or anybody else, there's going to be these covenants in place that would guarantee what's going to happen in the future. And it wouldn't be like, oh, we meet one week, or a new board meets and says, oh, let's sell, or something, you know. Right.
Town meeting has to vote. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that has to happen to make any of this happen.
Yeah, and also just a comment on the covenants or the restrictions. The motion that was voted on the town meeting, it was very clear. It did not give really the board any options other than to put restrictions on the property. The spirit and the intent is in the language, and it doesn't give the board any other option other than to put those restrictions on. I think the issue, I think you're concerned, and I think it's valid, is what happens if we sell the property and somebody sells it at that point, what happens, right?
Yes.
So that's what we need to
That's exactly
understand, right?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
We understand, Robin and Cindy, without a doubt. Knowing some of the principal players that are coming forward, I know that we had not an incident, but we had something that never happened before. That a developer would come into the town and ask the townspeople, "What do you want here? Not what I want to put in here, but what do you want here? What do you want to see here?" And, you know, Yolanda and Steve and I had gone to several of these meetings with the neighborhood that was there. And that's the type of individual who, you know, has come forward. Whether or not this happens or not, you know, it's still in an infant stage. But he's the type of individual he's told us, and we've talked to other towns where he's in, that he doesn't sell his property. Once he buys something, he keeps it. That's his legacy. That's why he calls it legacy. And it's one of those things. So we'll see what happens with it. Do I want to see anything happen to it? I'd like to see it be used in a way that we all feel comfortable. You know, I don't want to see it falling apart. We have too many of those happening now. So.
Okay. If there is nothing else or no other comments, I'm not seeing any other hands. We are going to move on our agenda. We still have a few items left. We're going to move into the town manager's report with a COVID update and update on our CARES funds.
Oh, okay. Bear with me again. Well, actually, you know what? Ed, you're on, right?
I am.
You've been waiting for this moment all night.
No, actually, I was watching for the town meeting stuff.
Why don't you give an update on the numbers? We can talk a little bit about the school, and then I can go into the CARES Act funding, okay?
So currently, as of tonight, we have 70 open cases. We're definitely seeing an uptick like all the other communities around us. Actually, while this meeting was going on, Southborough Board of Health called me about an issue that's going to be a joint thing. But what I actually did was I was, with those 70 cases, you know, we definitely see a lot more in the smaller apartment type areas. So for example, in one apartment building of that 70, we have 7 cases. And we have a total of 12 households with 2 positives in them and 3 households with 3 positives. And then again, we
we've been trying to tracing this apartment, and we did find out during the tracing that many of them, they're friends. So they go apartment to apartment. They've shared some rides to church. So we've been able to identify it down to that level.
Ed, those numbers contain anything that's happened since Thanksgiving, and you know, people getting together? Are these? Do you anticipate more?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing that. We're already starting to see a little bit of an uptick compared to a normal week. You know, I would average, you know, normally, you know, 2 or 3 a day. And, you know, for example, just last night, between, you know, when I finally got off the computer and back this morning, you know, we had 9 additional positives, wow, you know, in a very short period of time.
Yeah. Question, Ed, the CDC just came out with new quarantine guidelines, and they kind of reduced them, I think from 14 to 10 to 7 days. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so in Massachusetts, we have to follow DPH guidelines. Whenever the CDC makes a recommendation, our Massachusetts Department of Public Health will look at that recommendation and either take it or not. I actually already checked on that today. At this point, they are staying with the current change that was made a week and a half ago. I'll just really briefly tell you. So anybody that's quarantined as a close contact has 2 options. They can do the entire 14 days, or on day 8 after the exposure, and I always like to remind people, the exposure date is day 0. On day 8, they can test with a PCR test. If they're negative and asymptomatic, their last day of quarantine will be day 10, so they can resume activities on day 11. But as a safety measure in our schools, if a student in our schools is a close contact, regardless of that, even if they try to do the 10-day to get out to do other activities, we still make them complete the 14 days for the school classes.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Ed, can you talk a little bit, we're talking about the schools a little bit, what's been happening in the schools and what the plan is?
So most of you, I'm sure a lot of you have seen Jim's emails. We do not have a spread in the schools. We have an issue with gatherings on the weekends. So for example, this past weekend, we found out about 2 parties. And when the nurses at the school started to do the contact tracing, we found out that there was actually more than 2. And we had a couple of students that were positive, and then, but some of these students went to multiple parties. So to err on the safe side, you know, Jim had to make that decision because the amount of kids that we had to put in quarantine, Jim had to make the decision to go all remote at the high school.
And when is that remote over, that time frame?
I think the plan is to go back a week from Monday, if I remember correctly. I don't have it in front of me.
15th.
The 15th?
Yep.
The 15th, okay.
And the Pitaway went remote as well, right?
That was due to I'd rather not talk about that publicly.
Yeah, there's very limited info that Ed can give, just because
with that. Yep.
So we just got to remind the parents to remind their kids to not go to parties, to wear your mask, to, you know, understand that by doing stuff like this, you're affecting your ability to go to school. That's like, it's hard. We understand that. I mean, it's tough on these kids, but they're just making it harder on themselves by doing this kind of stuff.
And the other impact it has, especially on our high school kids, is that, you know, when we are all remote, you know, a school committee decision was made that there would be no sports activities. So those are also suspended due to this.
Now, I don't think they're in their winter season yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Right.
But still. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ed.
Oh,
As
you're welcome.
always, we appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
updates. Keep
Thanks.
up
You're
the good work.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, appreciate all your work, Eddie. Thanks.
Thanks.
So just to go in briefly in terms of the COVID charges. So currently on the municipal end, and I'm also including the $400,000 that was allocated in mortgage and rental assistance. And I'm going to let Jen jump in at some point and talk a little bit more about that. So right now, between what we have spent and what we're projecting to spend until the end of the year, we're looking at spending, again, this is on the municipal side, of $761,452. So we had initially expected, again, on the municipal side to receive $864,000. So again, if you subtract the 761 from the 864, that leaves $102,000 remaining, which we're trying to spend before the end of the calendar year when that money goes away, because it does not look like there's going to be any type of extension. As part of that, as part of the expenditures that we have already incurred, and also what we're projecting to incur over the next few weeks, is this mortgage and rental assistance program. And Jen, I don't know if you wanted to give a little bit of an update on that one, and just kind of what things are.
Sure. So we have about $110,000 that we have allocated through this month to pay both rental and mortgage. We were certainly hoping that we would receive an extension so that we could continue to help folks with any rental or mortgage assistance. Luckily, we do have a nice stopgap, I think, with the Affordable Housing Trust had voted to allocate funds from 200 or 250,000, I can't remember which one, to continue the program. So there is the only change that in the program is that we were able to use mortgage assistance a little bit less restrictive than the trust can. So their funds require them to only help with mortgage assistance on deed restricted properties. So that obviously really decreases the pool of people for mortgage. And so we are working with the emergency fund just in case we do have people who come in and request it that we're not able to help, that we would have previously been able to help. And so Emma has been working with Human Services, and we've talked to the emergency fund, and they have been very supportive. We've been in coordination with them throughout the process to make sure that we can help as many families as possible. But it is really great that the trust is, with the trust support, we're able to continue this program because we are still seeing families who really do need the help.
Okay.
No other questions on COVID or the CARES funds?
No, it's good work. Keep it coming, especially with the federal government kind of booting it around. So
They're supposed to have a vote at the end of the month. We'll see how that goes.
So moving on, I did have FY21 budget update. I meant FY22 budget update. So FinCom has met. They discussed the FY22 budget letter that is going out. We have sent that out. We'll start working on that process in earnest. Hopefully we will not be as in a situation as we were this past year, where we essentially passed a budget and then had to go back and rework it again at the last minute based on some of the issues related to COVID and then the federal and state government as well. So it would be on the lookout.
Let's hope the state government finishes their current budget and then gets started on their new budget in a timely manner.
Exactly. And then finally on town meeting logistics, you had some questions, Rob. I think you had some questions specifically related to town meeting and just some of the prep work associated with that.
Sure.
We are using those specialized filters that you had talked about.
Great.
I'll just bear with
Does he have any extras? I've been trying to get them.
I don't think so. I don't think we can use those resources either. Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, there were these special filters that you had.
Great. That's great.
Again, I'm kind of struggling here.
And you got the fans and they're going to keep the air moving and people distant and all that.
So, the max capacity of the gym is 2,557, and that's, of course, with everything filled. So the filtration that we're going to be using are those MERV 13 filters.
Yeah, great.
Rob, I think you know what MERV means.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know what it means. I know the term though.
Okay, so
absolutely, yeah.
We'll have 6 pure air purifiers there because it's roughly 20,000 square feet. Each one of those air purifiers can clean 3,500 square feet each. So it would be over that 20,000 square foot number with those number of air purifiers there.
So if I may, Madam Chair, Michael, these don't come free, I'm sure. So there has to be some sort of cost that comes with either renting them or purchasing them. And are we using the CARES money for that purpose? Okay. Yeah. Just to clear the air, excuse the pun, but someone's going to ask the question, where's that money coming from? So.
And so we did the Eversource update, and
yep. Steve, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I have a question, Michael, about logistics at town meeting setup to be like the June town meeting.
Exactly, except there won't be a stage. We won't be able to do the stage behind us.
Okay, now as far as presentations of warrant articles, you're going to present the articles as we go through town meeting. Is that the plan?
Yes, we'll have, again, the same setup. We'll have one FinCom member, Brittany, myself, Lisa, and Jim. And there's going to be very limited in terms of presentations.
Okay. And there will be 1 or 2 microphones available for?
Exactly. Similar setup. We'll have the seats certainly separate distance.
Yeah. And how about accommodations for overflow?
Yeah, so we're setting up the cafeteria also. So that's what we did in June.
Okay.
For overflow, and we'll make sure that it's streaming in there. And then also we'd have to sort of figure out how we would communicate, similar to what we have when we've had larger town meetings. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on town meeting logistics?
No, that sounds good. Get people in and out.
Okay. So for those of you watching, and just a reminder, it is now Wednesday, December 9th, starting at 6, not December 8th. So, okay. That is everything on our.
I'm sorry, did you say 6 o'clock as opposed to 7?
6 o'clock, yes.
Oh,
it's starting at 6 o'clock on the 9th, not 7, 6 o'clock, which is an hour earlier than usual. That is everything on our agenda. I'm going to open it up for board reports. Brandy, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a relatively new group here in Ashland called AREA, which is Ashland, I'm going to get it wrong because acronyms, Ashland Residents for Equity in Action. And it was begun by Kara Terrell and Maggie Soki as a response to the George Floyd murders, the murder that happened in May. And basically, they wanted to get a group together, people of color and their allies, to really give a voice to those and make sure that people of color are represented in local government and in schools, and have their voices heard. So, Ashland is becoming a more diverse community, and I think it's really important that we have boards and committees and engagement that reflect that diversity. So a couple weeks ago, they invited me to join their meeting and really talk about the select board and what we do, and even how people would run for office, the process of pulling papers and getting signatures, talking a little bit about experience on committees and groups to get a feel for how town government works. So it's a group that I think they've already started to become more engaged in a lot of our committees. We've seen them join the Cultural Council. I think there's been some interest in the Affordable Trust. So I think there's going to be opportunity for us to engage with them as well, and really kind of bring in their voice and make sure that they are represented in our town government. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about them. So I think that it's a good group, and they're really active, engaged residents, which is great to see. So hopefully more to come on that.
Yeah, very good.
Good.
I also just wanted to let folks know that the Lighted Up Ashland, the luminaries are still for sale over at Blush Bouquets through this end of the week. It coincides with Illuminate Ashland, the virtual event, which is on Saturday. And for anyone who's not familiar with these luminaries, you can purchase, whether it's a couple or 6, and they're kits with like cut out bags and sand and operated tea lights, and you can line your driveway or your steps. And Lisa from Blush says that the luminaries can last, hers have lasted over a week already. So it's not sort of a one day thing, but it reminds me a lot of, I grew up in Florida, and at Christmas time, on Christmas Eve, we all used to purchase little bags with actual candles in them, and we'd all light all of our candles on Christmas Eve, and we'd walk through the neighborhoods. So I think that this is sort of that same kind of feeling. They're gonna post up on the website, probably on the bulletin board, the streets that are really participating, letting people tell others where they can find the candles. And it's a really way for folks to be able to drive and walk through Ashland and see everything kind of lit up. So I would encourage folks, if they haven't already, to go to Blush by Friday, and proceeds will benefit the Ashland Emergency Fund. So it's a win-win for everybody. And the other thing I just wanted to give up.
Hold on before you go to the next one. And this is the second in the series of Up Ashland. So every season they're looking for things to keep people engaged and energized. So this is the second one after the color up that happened in October. Sorry, go ahead, Brandy.
Thank you. And the other thing, I just wanted to give a shout out to Ashland Human Services, to Jennifer Wolfing and Kara Terrell, and all their holiday elves that have been really busy for the holiday program. I saw Steve, the holiday elf, there today. They've put together a really great program and process for people to be able to adopt kids through Ashland Human Services for the holidays, and then be able to drop those gifts off safely and in a way that is easy for residents. And I think it's been a program that my family's been involved in for years. It's something I really look forward to, and knowing that we can make the holidays better for a lot of Ashland families. It's a great program, and they do such great work there. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
If I can comment
Brandy,
on that.
do you know if there's, hold on, Steve. Brandy, do you know if they're still looking for people to support families and kids?
No, they're good.
They're good. Okay.
As I say, the only thing that I had heard was that they could still accept gift cards for sort of hard to gift teens. So
yeah. So if I could comment or piggyback on because I saw Brandy this morning, and this is the Adopt a Family program, as Brandy described, and there are 98 Ashland families that are benefiting from this program. And if you're familiar with the famous line from A Streetcar Named Desire, when Blanche DuBois says, I depend on the generosity of, or she says, I depend on the kindness of strangers. This is exactly what this is, because this is an anonymous match between a giving family and a receiving family. And 98 people, it's just fantastic. And the pickup, the families receiving are picking up next Wednesday on the 9th, and just a great program. So again, I agree, shout out to Kara, to Jennifer, to Candy Wilson, to all the staff there that made this possible. I know Jen Ball's in the middle of this as well. She's in the middle of everything. So, no doubt Jen coordinated a lot of this, but, the emergency fund, really does a tremendous amount for the community. And as Brandy mentioned, they are still receiving gift cards at this point in time. So anybody out there that has a desire to donate some gift cards, they're more than welcome.
Thank you. Anything else, Brandy?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Brandy, for doing all that extra work. That's greatly appreciated. It's nice to see the torch being carried over from the Ashland Youth Service Program that used to do that program year after year after year, and supporting and finding those needy families and the children that need things during the holidays, and the elderly as well. So kudos to you, and kudos to everybody that picked up the torch from Isabel Harrison and her group. And I was honored to be part of that group to do that for many, many years. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. I have a few things. We have a public safety building meeting coming up tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We're going to go over some things with respect to the issues of contractors and subcontractors and things of that nature. So if you're interested in following that process, we'll be on Zoom at 3 o'clock. It's posted on the website, so town website. So come one, come all type of deal. I would like to discuss at our next meeting the possibility. So I'll just give you guys times to think about. The Affordable Housing Trust has 3 wonderful new candidates that have shown an exceptional interest in becoming members of the trust. And they, from what Brandy was saying, the group area is exactly what this is. Deb Griffin, who thought of us and said, we need to be more diverse, and she was right. And we'd like to get somebody that's in an affordable housing unit to be on the committee as well. So we have 3 wonderful folks who showed and expressed a serious interest in becoming members, and they've come to the last couple of meetings, and they've added a lot of support and a lot of great ideas to what we want to do and what we should be doing. And I would hate like heck to see, all 3 of them. We have 1 open space, and I hate like heck to see the other 2 who've put a lot of interest in and willing and want to work with us not be part of it. So that's why there's going to be a request to increase the size of the committee from 5 to 7. And having said that, just think about that, and if we can put it on the next agenda, if we can work on that, that would be greatly appreciated by all of us on the committee as well. And they are of color, which is great. It's about time. So we'll go from there, and I think they'll add a lot of good input and positive input for what we need to do.
Joe, yep. Just a quick question, because I'm sure you're aware our Ashland Housing Authority is also short of members.
Yep. I will bring that up to them.
They can't meet because they don't have a quorum. So I know we always, we keep going back and forth. Sometimes when we increase committees to 7 or 9, then a couple years later, we're like, oh, it's too many and we can't meet a quorum. So I would say, as you're talking to these 2 people, to the people who want to participate in the affordable housing,
yep,
might they be interested, especially if they're coming from affordable housing, might they be interested in Ashland Housing? So
and that's an excellent idea. I have that in my notes for our next meeting, which is coming up in
just a clarification. Who appoints? Do we have an appointed to the Housing Authority, or are we in a position?
So what happens with the Housing Authority is we appoint them, but then they have to run for election the next time there's an election.
Because I thought there was like a governor's appointment.
There is a governor's appointment.
There is a governor's appointment, but that position is filled. So we're looking for residents of Ashland, ideally people who might live in Ashland housing, but I don't know that there's any that are interested right now.
Right.
So if not in Ashland housing, if there are other people, you know, either from affordable housing or just,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
that's a
who
good
are
point.
interested. But
Good
again, we can
reminder.
appoint them and then they'd have to run for election in the spring.
Right.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
that'll definitely be brought up. So not a problem.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, no,
Okay,
you're,
keep
you're
going.
welcome. Appreciate it. And just one other thing is that the holiday lighting ceremony, of course, has to be postponed. The lights will be up. I talked to Beth a couple of days ago, right before the holiday break, and they will be up and running. So everybody can come see the wonderful display of lights. I don't know if the menorah is there, if it's going to be up or not. Haven't heard anything from anybody yet. If anybody has any contact with Cerise Shalom, maybe we can find out if they're going to put it up or not.
My understanding is they are. I don't know
Yeah.
specifics, but
They're working on something. We're working with Ed, just trying to make sure that we meet all the precautions.
Oh, no, and that I understand that. So I just, you know, it was a great program last year and in years past. So, but there will be a drive through town. If Dennis cannot make his presence known at the Santa House on the holiday lighting or Light Up Ashland. So we will keep everybody posted as to where and what neighborhood Santa will be driving around in a big red fire truck. So have the kids ready. It'll be earlier in the afternoon so that we don't disturb their night sleep, and they can see Santa and then go to bed and have wonderful dreams of Santa and reindeers throughout the night. So, but that's going to be the 12th and the 13th, Saturday and a Sunday. And I think that'll be it. And I just want to thank everybody for all their effort. And Ed, I was in the town hall the other night, and he was on the phone. Another phone call. I don't know how he does it. I just want to thank him for all his work. I don't know how many people don't appreciate what he's doing in there, but he's keeping everybody in line and he's keeping everybody informed, which is important, very important. Now all we have to do is get parents to realize that this is not a joke.
Yeah.
This is not a joke, folks. Honest to goodness. You know, it's just like parties. I mean, this is nothing different. This is absolutely nothing different. And 2 seconds on a soapbox, but come on. You know, the parties that they used to have, the drinking parties they used to have, there was a liability issue. And I'm kind of curious, and if Ed's listening, why can't the town charge these folks with, you know, something similar? You know, if their parents are allowing these parties to take place in their own homes.
and if they're gathering more than 10 people and yeah,
right. I mean, all
stuff.
these things. I mean, so is that contributing to the delinquency of a minor? In my mind, in my eyesight, yeah, I think so. I think so. I'll stretch it as far as I can to keep people from getting sick. You know, if it wasn't that people were dying, and that's one thing, but oh my goodness, you're putting yourself in harm's way. For what? Now, I know Robin thought he was invincible in high school, and he was. And we all did, but this is far beyond that. So I would just hope everybody would just use common sense. My goodness. End of story. Okay, I'm done.
Yep.
Thank
you, Joe.
Can I ask a quick question? Just because I know Joe has a hard line into Santa. So, so Santa's still taking letters, right? In the red.
Certainly is.
Yes.
Yep.
Certainly is. There's a mailbox right after that Santa house. That's not closed. That's open. Directly to the North Pole.
And parents know that if they drop off a letter in a self-addressed stamped envelope, they might get a response back from Santa.
From Santa, absolutely. Okay. Sounds good to me.
Good reminder, Brandy.
Thank you.
We loved those letters for so many years. Those Santa's awesome.
Right, it's called writer's cramp.
Can I comment on what Joe just said? I know I'm not a member, but Robin Hicks, Joe, I think that the parents have to be held accountable for what's going on because it's a terrible thing we're in, and we really all have to stick together on this.
Thanks, Robin.
Everyone.
Thank you, Robin.
Appreciate it, pal.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve.
Hey, so hey, Robin, thank you for that comment. I think unfortunately, when we have leaders at higher levels of government that aren't, projecting the same concern, that's a problem. And it's definitely fueling a lot of what we're experiencing everywhere across the country. So thanks for those comments, Joe and Robin. So my comments are related to the community center again. One of the things during the holiday season, the food pantry is typically very well stocked, as it is this year. But what happens is it gets depleted. So January and February, it needs to be replenished. So might be something that we as a board want to support, food drive of some measure. We used to do them in the past. Joe, Yolanda, you remember the Lions have done them. It's probably not, at this point, obviously we can't, it's not practical to do the food drive in a traditional way, but we can probably put something together to promote a food drive in that January, February timeframe. So
makes sense.
The senior lunch program is ongoing. The next 2 Mondays, Monday the 7th and Monday the 14th, are regular Monday senior drive-by lunches. But on the 21st, December 21st, is a free lunch, a free senior lunch, sponsored by, that's the holiday lunch, since we're not going to do our traditional community center holiday lunch. It's sponsored by the Friends of the Community, the Council on Aging. So that's December 21st, nice. A free senior lunch to celebrate the holiday season. The community center is involved in a pen pal program, and it's very interesting. This is a letter exchange program between seniors and kids from the Mindes School in grades 3 to 5. And this was actually created and promoted by a student, Ayla Turncliffe, Amy and Ryan's daughter. And I just wanted to give a shout out to her for creating this program. And apparently it's been pretty successful with the seniors, and it's actively being embraced. So a shout out to Ayla for her efforts. And then I want to speak a little bit about a grant that was received at the community center, and it's a very, very interesting grant and proposal. It's something called Ashland Aid, and AID is spelled AIDE, for older adults. And AIDE stands for Activities, Internet Connection, Devices, and Education. And the community center's outreach coordinator, Candy Wilson, put this together. She applied for and received a grant of $24,000 from the Metro West Health Foundation. And what her vision, her program, is to create a platform to address social isolation among older adults. And it's open to qualified seniors, and they require documentation that they receive particular assistance programs, and it's a variety of them. And the intent is to provide devices, meaning, let's say, an iPad or a laptop or some device, a Wi-Fi internet connection, and creating a virtual senior center where seniors can then go and bond online. And when you look at our community center, the seniors that use our community center, it's a relatively small subset of the seniors that exist in Ashland. And as we know, we've talked about this in the past, there is a lot of isolation among the senior set. And I think this is just a fantastic program. And this is something that goes beyond just COVID-19, because a lot of these seniors are isolated anyway, and for a variety of reasons. So I think I see Candy on the line. I don't know if she wants to comment on anything, but I think this is just a tremendous program and has, such great potential. So I just wanted to shout out for her efforts. And I know, Jen, I'm sure you were involved in this as well. So, thank you for coordinating this and whatever work you've done with it. So there's Candy. I don't know if you want to, Candy, you have any comments?
Hi. I'm just really excited to get the program up and running. I've been actually searching and searching since April, since the pandemic began. I work with seniors very closely and know what they endure on a daily basis outside of COVID. So I think I'm very excited and I'm very passionate about helping our seniors in our community.
Great. Thank you.
That's great.
Job. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question?
Thank you, Candy. Congratulations.
Can I just ask a question of Candace or Steve about this? This sounds like a great program. One caution though, we've been finding a lot of issues, I think, in this country with social media, especially people getting sucked into all sorts of fringe groups. And we know that like places like Facebook and and Google, have designed these algorithms which keep finding your interests and feeding you things that grow on negative things. It's become a real phenomenon. So I would just, part of it, hopefully what you're doing is education to be, sophisticated consumers of what they might come in contact with. I know from my own family, certain senior people in my family for years got really marginal emails and, it's a bit of an issue. So
yeah, anyway, it is.
But otherwise, it's a great thing. So
yeah, as the outreach coordinator at the center, I actually am in connection with the CDC. So, or the commission of all of the scams that are going on with the seniors and just scams in general across the country. And
sure, that's another thing in social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So I'm constantly putting out there in our newsletters about some of the scams that are, happening right now. So we are definitely aware of that piece of it. We're going to use the platform for Zoom, which we know that you've got to be careful with Zoom. I think not as much so now as it is now, but previously we were having issues with hackers, but I agree. It's definitely an educational piece that we'll have to add into our training.
Rob, everything on Facebook's true. I don't know.
Especially my comments, yeah.
Candy, I just wanted to tell you, first of all, that it sounds awesome and congratulations on getting
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about what you guys are doing over there. I did want to say, like, if you're looking for training, the Attorney General's office has some training programs that they will offer online. Like they will come and they will do presentations. So if there's, they had sent me a list of possible topics. I'm happy to send it to you and put you in touch with the folks over there that are doing these basically free training. And
that would be great.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Candy.
Thanks,
Candy. Congratulations.
Thank you, Candy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Thanks.
Just two more things, and then I'm done. I just had a chance to swing by Doragon Provisions this afternoon, and related to Doragon Ramen, and it's really a nice. It's a small shop, but I guess what struck me is, this is a business that's adapting to the environment, to the situation, and I just want to extend, best wishes and good luck to Alan and Pepsi for this new configuration of their business. It's very interesting. If you have a chance, swing by. It's a very small shop. You probably don't want to be in there if there's somebody else in there at this point, but very interesting products. And lastly, I just want to extend best wishes to all of our Ashland first responders, our frontline healthcare workers, and our teachers. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Rob?
Oh, thanks. Just two items. One a quick one, just a reminder, the Ashland Lions Christmas trees are selling. They just started up this weekend, and just get, hopefully, I haven't been out there yet, but they tell me it's socially distanced, so go out and get your real Christmas tree if you want to get it at a reasonable price and benefit local charities. And but don't wait too long, tend to sell out fairly early, another week or
Yeah,
two, I would say.
They got 600 trees and they had sold 200 by the end of the weekend. So
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
And my strategy is to hope they sell fast. It'll be gone before my shift comes up.
My shift is the second week. I think the same way as you do, Rob. So I thought.
Oh, you guys are bad. You guys are
no,
bad.
I'm actually scheduled for Friday, but no, well, anyway.
Okay, what else?
The other thing is, the other thing is, as you know, I'm the Ashland representative of the MBTA Advisory Committee, and we've been having a number of meetings. I'm also on the suburban, the commuter rail subcommittee, and also the executive committee. So, we know that the T has proposed fairly substantial service cuts in order to, they say, balance the budget actually for the remainder of this fiscal year ending this June, so they can carry a surplus in the next fiscal year and balance the budget then. So they've got, of course, have pretty drastic ridership decreases and want to make a number of pretty substantial cuts. And if you recall, we had focused, at least on commuter rail, the two biggest parts of that was no longer any cutting weekend service and no service after 9 o'clock. So the advisory committee staff did a review and, went to all these hearings, there's been a series of hearings, and came up with a proposal that if the T forecast that they would get the usual FEMA revenue for the remainder of this fiscal year, given that there's going to be a new administration, and that they cut back certain other COVID-related expenses that they maybe didn't need to do for a full 12 months in the next fiscal year, and a number of other budget things, that severe service cuts would not be necessary in light of these some of these budget changes. So I think what the advisory committee, or at least the current recommendation is, and what the meetings on Friday, I think the advisory committee, the sense is that it's going to make they have under Massachusetts law, the advisory committee has an official responsibility to make a recommendation on MBTA severe service cuts, which defined as being more than 10% cutbacks, which that's what this is. So I believe the advisory committee is leaning towards, and will have a formal vote Friday, to propose that these severe service cuts are not necessary, with maybe some nuanced language saying that, of course, as managers, they're responsible for making rational reductions in certain cases, such as maybe, like, for example, reducing train sets. You've got a lot of empty trains, so you don't need as many cars. Some of the really underutilized stations can be closed, and that doesn't affect us because all our stations are very busy. I mean, ours, but all on the line are busy. But with some nuance that they can make as managers certain schedule reductions that seem rational, but to protect the major services, such as some weekends service and service after 9 o'clock. So that's my belief of what's going to happen. It's pretty much my position as well, but I wanted to get feedback from you folks for this vote on Friday. And if people agree or had any other particular concerns or thoughts on this. I thought that was good news that we don't have to do severe cuts, or that there's a way out of that. But that really is a budget analysis that the committee did. And we'll see how that holds up. But that's kind of the gist of it. So any thoughts or questions about that?
I would say if people have feedback, maybe they can give it to you directly, Rob. That way they can think about it and then send it to you.
Sure. And I think the gist of it is going to be to protect essential services. Now, I didn't get into, opining on the ferry service and the bus routes and things like that. I kind of left that for the urban folks on this committee. So I don't know if anybody, but of course, the idea is to protect not only people who are still commuting on a regular schedule, but essential service workers, especially healthcare workers and low-income people who don't have other options for a weekend or late night service. That's really the essence of what we're trying to protect. And if they could make rational reductions in light of those priorities, I think that's what would be supportive.
Okay, great.
And
So, yeah,
Rob,
if you have any other...
and I was just gonna say the cuts were slated to go into effect next spring, correct? Like, so it would be possibly when people were returning back to public transportation a little bit more, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the points we made. Although they do have some cuts they want to start in January. And I forget actually which ones they were, but I think some of the I think the commuter rail cutbacks were going to start sooner rather than later. And they had, 5 stations they wanted to close, which is fine with me. One was, I didn't even recognize them. They were in like little, I don't know, Canton West Station or something like that, or, but anyway. So there wasn't a lot of objections to closing those. And if managers need efficiency, that's probably fine.
I thought I read that they were looking to close the Plymouth.
That's right. That's one of them.
And that's a big one. In the article that I read, Rob, and I'll call you tomorrow. We can talk about it.
The representative from that area was not pushing to keep it open.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into the details, which was interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, great.
But yeah, sure. Any feedback? The meeting's a Zoom meeting on Friday. So.
Okay, thank you for that.
Great, thanks. That's it for me.
Okay, so our Valentine committee has 2 empty seats. I know a lot of the work is done, but I think there might be more work to do. And of course, if there are more people helping take a look at it, that could be a benefit. So if anyone's watching, or if you know anyone who is interested in the Valentine estate who would like to submit a talent bank form, we can look at appointing them. There's 2 vacant seats there. As we've already talked about, the Ashland Housing Authority is looking, they have 2 vacant seats. They can't even meet because they don't have quorum because of someone moving out. And then of course, the unexpected death of Danny Shea. So if you know anyone or someone's interested, bring them forward. Just a reminder, the Bark Park is still having their raffle through the end of the year. It's a way to raise funds so we can have matching funds for when we apply for the grant for the dog park that we're looking to put up on Memorial Drive. I've signed up for the MMA virtual meeting. I looked at some stuff. It looks like it's pretty interesting if you haven't done it. It's not the full days, but it's Thursday and Friday. So their schedule is up. There are some interesting sessions. So if you haven't signed up, consider doing that. You don't even have to go in. You can sit at home and attend the meetings.
Yolanda, I'm sorry, what dates? Is that in January?
January, I believe it's 21st and 22nd. Okay. It's a Thursday and Friday versus Friday and Saturday. So if you're interested, let Susan know and she'll get you registered. And then the other day, I don't always do it, but I watched Governor Baker's daily COVID update, and you don't see him get angry very often, but every once in a while you can just see him like getting pissed at people. So, I support his continued messaging to wear a mask and to be safe. And I did appreciate hearing that at this point, they're not looking at making any more restrictions in regards to businesses or things like that. That may have to change, but I also loved his little comment of, don't listen to your brother who is the brother-in-law of this person who maybe knows that. If you want hard facts, go to where the facts are, not because you heard something. I had an MMA policy meeting, and it's now been reported the police reform bill has been passed. Also the extension of mail-in voting for municipal elections, so we'll have to follow that. The other one that was interesting that I heard, Cannabis Control has approved delivery options. And there's going to be 2 types of delivery licenses, one for a courier where the company will have a courier that goes and can deliver the cannabis, and the other is a business that can be delivery only, where they would have to buy it and warehouse it, and then they could be delivery. So I have not had the opportunity to review our restrictions, but we may want to take a look at that. I mean, I support delivery. I think that's great for people. But the other thing that may affect our bylaws
Pizza.
in regards to the buffer zone is that the buffer zone is going to be now from the doorway of the marijuana business to the doorway of the business that you're trying to buffer. So it could, I have to check with planning as to if that affects any of our buffer zones, but I found that interesting. So. And then I would also like to extend my thank you to Michael and Jen and the rest of Town Hall staff who do what they do so that we can do what we need to do. And of course, to our first responders, our healthcare professionals, our teachers, our school committee, all our volunteers. I don't know about you, but I can't believe that it's December 2nd. Where the heck did 2020 go? And I'm looking forward to 2021.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
So
total crazy.
Hopefully we'll see many people at town meeting on December 9th wearing a mask, keeping your social distance. We'll have hand sanitizer. We'll have people to be able to do contact tracing. You know, I know it's difficult. I know there are people that are concerned. We, as Michael talked about in regards to the purifiers and the fans, and we're going to do what we can to keep people safe. So wear your mask, show up and participate. And I believe that is all I have. Wear your mask every day and just, you know, be a little more formal as you're saying hello to people so that you're not spreading anything. So if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I was going to say, you guys want to stay longer? I mean,
I don't know about that.
I'm like, you know, we can be done before 9. I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Out. Shear.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Mignani.
Aye.
Kinsman.
Aye.
You hesitated.
Late on that.
I like hesitated. And Greaves. Thank you all. Appreciate all your work.
Good night. Thanks.
Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks to the select board.
Thank you, Robin, for hanging in there.
Stay safe.